This fish can kill you. No antidote. Death within hours. And yet, someone ate it first. They probably died. But here's what gets me. Someone ate it second. Why? Why would you look at a fish that just killed your friend and decide you want a bite? The fish is fugu, puffer fish, and the toxin inside it is tetrodotoxin. 1 milligram. That's all it takes to kill a human adult. Tetrodotoxin blocks the voltage-gated sodium channels in your nerve cells. Your nervous system shuts down in sequence. You can't breathe, you can't move, but your brain still works. You're conscious the whole time. There is no antidote. Doctors can only put you on a ventilator and wait. Japan has been eating this fish for at least 6,000 years. Fugu bones have been found at the Ubayama shell mound in Chiba, dating to the mid-Jomon period, roughly 6000 BCE. At the same site, archaeologists found 5 human skeletons stacked in a pit. Some scholars think they died from fugu poisoning. Nobody knows for sure. Before the pyramids, before writing, before wheels. At some point back then, someone ate it and died. Someone else watched, and then made a decision. We'll never know who that was, but that decision is why fugu is still on menus today, and why chefs in Japan need 3 or more years of specialized training and a government license just to prepare it. The thing is, fugu is just one data point. Once you start looking, you find the same pattern on every continent. Cassava. You might know it as yuca or tapioca. Right now it feeds roughly 800 million people, a top 5 global crop. It also contains linamarin, a cyanogenic glycoside. When the root is damaged, an enzyme called linamarase breaks linamarin down and releases hydrogen cyanide gas. Raw cassava, in sufficient quantity, is lethal. To make it safe, ancient Amazonians developed a multi-step process. Grate the root on a studded board, which releases the cyanide into the air instead of concentrating it. Rinse repeatedly through woven baskets, squeeze out the liquid, dry it, then cook it. The full sequence takes days. Nobody knows how this was figured out. That's not a gap in the literature. Researchers have specifically looked for evidence of how this process was developed. There isn't any. The honest answer is, we have no idea. Someone had to try something. Something didn't work. Someone got sick. Someone probably died. And somewhere in that process, the information, what worked, what didn't, what killed, got passed on. How do you even begin to figure that out? This same pattern shows up everywhere. Ackee fruit, the national fruit of Jamaica. Eat it unripe, and you get Jamaican vomiting sickness, the toxin hypoglycin. A crashes your blood sugar, causes seizures, coma, death. Eat it ripe and properly prepared. It's delicious. It's literally Jamaica's national dish. Someone figured out exactly where the line was, and that knowledge has been passed down ever since. Bitter almonds. The wild ancestor of the almond you buy at the grocery store. They contain amygdalin, a compound your gut converts to hydrogen cyanide. Domestic almonds were bred over thousands of years to remove it, a selection process that required someone to keep track of which trees produce safer fruit across generations without understanding why. Raw kidney beans contain phytohemagglutinin, a lectin that disrupts your gut so severely that eating just a handful uncooked lands you in the emergency room within hours. Boil them fully and it denatures. That rule, boil kidney beans, exists specifically because enough people didn't, that the lesson had to get encoded somewhere. So, what's the explanation? Humans just got lucky over and over on every continent across thousands of years? No. What we're looking at is a system, a slow, expensive, distributed research program that ran for tens of thousands of years without anyone calling it that. When someone got sick from a food, that was data. What did they eat? How much? How was it prepared? Did the people who ate less get less sick? What happened when someone tried cooking it longer? Those questions got asked, not in a lab, but around a fire, in the immediate aftermath of a meal that went wrong. The answers became rules, food taboos, preparation rituals. Warnings passed from parent to child with no explanation beyond, "That's how it's done." Nobody questioned them because the people who questioned them weren't around anymore. Anthropologists call this cumulative cultural evolution. Knowledge that no single individual could acquire or hold gets distributed across a group and transmitted across generations. The remarkable thing isn't that humans figured out how to detoxify cassava. It's that the knowledge survived, intact, accurate, functional, for thousands of years before anyone understood the chemistry behind it. There's a name for deliberately building tolerance to poison through repeated small exposure: Mithridatism. Named after Mithridates VI, king of Pontus, who was so paranoid about assassination, his own father had been poisoned, that he spent years dosing himself with incrementally larger amounts of different toxins. He also ran experiments on condemned prisoners to map which poisons did what. His personal physician compiled the results into a compound antidote called the Mithridatium, which contained over 40 ingredients and was still being manufactured in Europe as late as the 17th century. The irony, when Roman forces finally cornered him and he tried to poison himself, nothing worked. He'd built too much tolerance. He had to ask a soldier to run him through with a sword. Mithridates was extreme and deliberate, but the underlying mechanism, repeated low-level exposure, observe the result, adjust, is the same logic early human communities were running on food, just collectively, across generations, without realizing that's what they were doing. The knowledge didn't live in any one person. It lived in the group, in the recipe that said soak it first, in the taboo that said don't eat the liver, in the rule that nobody remembered the origin of, but everyone followed anyway. It wasn't stupidity that made the second person eat the fish. It was science, just messier. We're still running this program, by the way. Phase 1 clinical drug trials are exactly this. Find the line between therapeutic and lethal through human exposure, observe, adjust. Researchers studying antivenoms deliberately inject themselves with increasing doses of snake venom. The ethics board paperwork is new. The method isn't. The first taster didn't have paperwork, just hunger and a group of people paying close attention. Thanks for watching. See you next time.